and that what are the different stakeholders are. So now we have got an apt person for to discuss you about the business model canvas. Uh, Dr. Mani P. Sam, Professor Mani P. Sam. Sam sir is the professor of Rajagiri Business School. And to introduce him, he has got both academic as well as academic excellence as well as from industry experience. So he becomes thus the very perfect person to discuss about the business model canvas. He is from an alumnus of MNIT Bhopal and IISc Bangalore, and after that he has his PGDM from the prestigious IIM Calcutta, and a fellow member. He is a fellow member of Institute of Cost Accountants. Now he actually brings 33 years of industry experience, of which one notable position is the vice president of CAMS Chennai, that is Computer Aided Management Services Chennai. And he has been teaching after his industry experience for the past 6 years in Rajagiri Business School. And he has taken a lot of session or rather on the business model canvas. So he will definitely able to give you a very good picture of how to make your business model canvas for your idea. So thank you very much for joining in this session. Sam sir, I'm handing over the platform to you for your session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Preeti and Kumaravel. And good afternoon to one and all. Today I plan to talk about business model canvas, which is nothing but a tool which will enable an entrepreneur to really look at his business in a systematic manner and ensure that he is able to really design the business based on the strategy and the purpose for which the business is run. So I will try to explain the business model canvas and try to do an example if possible, if the time permits. And I do hope if anybody got a doubt, you can raise the queries and we'll be able to have a discussion. Let me try to upload my presentation so that you have base to discuss. So we'll start with let us look at the business model canvas. Alexander Osterwalder is the one who proposed this one. And let us know what is a business. All of you, it is meant for entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs of NIT Calicut and others who are running businesses or who would like to look at businesses. So let us look at business in a dispassionate manner. So what is a business? A business actually is something which delivers a unique value proposition. Is it the whole world? No. It is to a particular target customer segment. To quote Michael Porter, the worst mistake for any business is to not have a strategy. That means you just start the business and keep running without realizing what value he is supposed to deliver to which segment. And again, to quote Michael Porter, he says that the best strategy will leave some segments dissatisfied, which means that the strategy will ensure that the value proposition is really meant for the target business segment. So what is a business strategy? Let us look at that. All of us talk about strategy. You would have heard about strategy, and we might have even seen it framed and kept on the wall. Very nice documents are created. But in fact, strategy is the basis for any business to operate. It is the basis in which you plan, operate, and also decide where you want to be. How, why, and where of a business is strategy. And if it is so that important, why is that people are not really looking at it? Somehow, strategy was considered as something which is meant not to be kept on a daily basis or not required to be referred on a daily basis. In fact, whatever you do has to be derived from the strategy of your business. So to again quote Dr. Pankaj Khamawat, Global Professor of Management, strategy is what connects the firm, the business, with the environment. The environment includes every stakeholder, like your competitors, your customers, your suppliers, the whole environment in which you operate. So the firm has its goals, values, resources, capabilities, and it has a structure and system. But what connects this, what is internal to an organization with what is external, where actually the business is conducted, for whom the business is conducted. So strategy is the most important connecting factor between the firm and its environment. But what happened during the pandemic? All of you know that during the pandemic, we had a major problem with all what we were doing and what we were not doing, because the planned strategy was very badly affected by the global pandemic. I don't want to get into whether it was a black swan event or a predict, whatever it may be. As a result, all the planned strategies had to be dumped into the dustbin, and very few of the planned strategy became a realized strategy. Emergent strategies had to be developed, which became really important for all those who have done well during this pandemic. So why is it that possible to look at this planned strategy and realized strategy and how exactly the emergent strategies come into play? All that can be analyzed using this simple tool known as business model canvas, which again we'll actually try to do with the help of an example later on in this lecture. Of course, the whole view about business itself is changing because of the analysis or developments in behavioral economics. And we also seen that it's no longer, you can say it's impersonal, players are there. It is all very, very different. The way in which you look at the business scenario, the world, everything has changed actually. So we should keep this also in mind while we work on the business model canvas. So what is it? As I told you earlier, it is a tool for strategy implementation and management. It's a rather a design template which allows you to describe the business model. For every business, there's a business model. Business model is the way in which the company creates value for its customer, the unique value proposition, delivers it, and gets compensated in terms of revenue from it. So the way in which the company earns revenue is its business model, and the whole business model can be nicely described on a business model canvas. So since it's a very practical tool, it allows everybody to use this to analyze even an existing business and look at it and see the lacunae, if any, and modify it, or look at the changes in the environment and decide on where the correction or improvement need to be implemented. So BMC is basically a 9-box format where the formal descriptions of the business from various perspectives become the building block and the descriptors of its activities. Why is it important? Because the way the value proposition is created, naturally it is created for meeting some customer requirement. requirement of a particular segment which you are targeting. And whatever value created has to be delivered based on feedback, changes in environment. It has to be kept up to date if the business has to survive. So all these critical activities of a business can be analyzed using it. Now let us look at the BMC proper. If you look at the BMC, it has 9 boxes. It has a value proposition, customer relationships, customer segments, channels, key resources and key activities, and key partners. All these activities do give rise to a cost structure. And using the value delivered, you get compensated by the revenue streams. Very simple. So the value proposition has to be based on the customer requirements, and it has to be delivered through channels, and the customer relationship is essential to understand the requirement as well as to see what is the customer experience. The value proposition should be unique, but at the same time, it should meet the changing customer requirements. So value proposition is not a static thing, it is a dynamic thing. And the dynamic value proposition is created through key activities, the activities which create value. And creating the value is done with using some key resources. Key resources, normally the resources owned by the company or the business. Since it does not make economic sense or not really feasible for every business to own all the key resources required for carrying out the key activities so that it can create the value required by the customer, it normally aligns with key partners who provide the resources or carry out the key activity itself. So that is why the connecting arrows show key resources to key activities, key partner to key activities, key partner to key resources, or finally the key activities creating the value proposition which is delivered to the customer to meet the customer requirements, and the customer relationships and the channel ensures delivery, and the customer relationship is gaining all the feedbacks, requirements, changing environment, everything from the customer segment. And in the cost structure, the value creation gives this to the cost structure, and the revenue streams, customer segment give you the revenue for it. Now what we'll do is we'll go into each one of these boxes and analyze them in detail. And once you finish the analysis, we'll get back to a business situation and put everything together. Any queries at this stage? So it's very important that when you start with a blank 9-box format, you really should be able to, what is called a label or an entry in the box. Is the information relevant to the business in that particular kind of activity or requirement of resources or whatever is linked to value creation or delivery? You have to make an entry there. Why is it? Each of these entries have to be threaded together end to end. So there are no orphan entries. There is no standalone thing which has no connection to other boxes. So when read together, all the entries which are made in 9 boxes tells you the story, a very cogent and coherent story of the business as to how it is creating value, delivering value, maintaining customer requirements, fulfilling the customer requirements on a regular basis, and basically how the business is realized. So the whole story is told by this 9-box canvas. Now let us get into customer segment, because it is better to look at the customer segment because ultimately customer is all revenue. Everything comes from the customer. The business is run for the customer. And the customer is the one who compensates businesses and enables to earn revenue. The customers of the business, you should be able to define in such a way that you have as much uniformity in their requirements as possible. I say again, the segment should be as uniform as possible. The way you define a segment, it should be, the requirement should be uniform. Otherwise, you cannot call it as a segment. And you really cannot say what the customer requirement, and you really cannot make a value proposition which will fulfill that. That's what the statement of Professor Michael Porter, I'm starting again, the best strategy will leave some customer segments dissatisfied. You really cannot have a magic pill which will meet the requirements of every segment. Or the focus is lost if you are not trying to meet the requirements of a segment in full. It cannot be a diluted delivery. It should be in full, 100% meeting the requirements. But what happens in a multi-sided platform or a market? I'm giving an example of that. So you may have to serve mutually dependent customer segments. You really cannot take it one segment. There is another mutually dependent customer segment. Both have to be served together. Let us look at the example of a credit card company. Credit card companies actually make you to make payments digitally with ease. You don't have to carry cash. And they also give you a consolidated statement. They also give you rewards. It makes it easy for you to do many, many business transactions. Whenever you feel like you only need to carry the card or enter the card details online. But is the credit card company only looking at the credit card holders? No, they have to ensure that many, many merchants accept this card. Why do merchants accept this card? Only if their business gets a boost because of this acceptance of this type of a credit card. So more customers will come to the business if they accept a credit card. This kind, and also the payments goes direct to the bank. There is no need for them to collect cash, accumulate it, and then deposit the bank. So they also get a kind of convenience. And of course, the merchant pays a kind of compensation to the credit card company, and various others will. So many people share that revenue. The customer, normally the consumer or the credit card holder does not make a payment because normally credit cards are given free, or he gives a fixed annual payment only. But actually, who really makes the payment for the credit cards? For what is the real revenue for the credit card company? It is the defaulters of the credit card who make the business highly profitable, because the credit cards interest rates are extremely high, maybe 35 to 40%. And in fact, the defaulting customers are the ones who pay for everybody else. It's a fact, but this is how I am talking about the multi-sided platforms and markets work. Revenue given one obtained from some segments, value creation for many segments, all that is possible in a multi-sided platform as well. What is a value proposition? It's a commonly used term, value proposition. What is it? The unique value proposition, as it is called, is something which differentiates your business from its competitors. It's a differentiator. So it may be, there may be many elements which makes or builds up this unique value proposition. Mainly it is ensuring that or assisting that your customers gain by using your service or product, or they are able to eliminate some pain by using your product. So getting the job done, that means getting the pain eliminated or getting the gain or done, it will be through the newness of your product or the technology, the way it performs, how it can be customized for a specific customer, the physical design, the industrial design, or the perceived value of the brand, or the price at which is offered. It allows you to, maybe this product or service reduces cost for the customer, reduces the risk for the customer, or makes it more accessibility, convenience. There can be many, many elements which together creates a unique value proposition. They may be quantitatively expressed price, efficiency, or qualitatively based on the customer perceptions and experience. And let me be very frank, whole world, there is nothing called reality. It is all a matter of perception. Whatever we perceive is our reality. So let us do a bit more analysis of this value proposition. The Osterwalder strategizer has given some more input in the name of a value proposition canvas. Why I dwell more on it? Because this is the crux of a business. How exactly the business creates either a gain creator or a pain reliever in the form of a product and service and offers it to the customer. Customer gains or eliminate pains, and because they are trying to solve some problem in their work or in their lives, there's something to be solved. He wants to improve the performance. This enables that. He wants more convenience in usage. He wants an error-free, consistent, reliable, whatever is the requirement, because solve their work really means the customer has a requirement which need to be fulfilled. So there is another aspect you should remember here. Is the customer requirements all fully explicit or expressed? No, they can be latent. Customer may not be aware that there is a gain or elimination of pain possible in a new method or a new product which is non-existent. They have a general feel, the latent requirement. So if you are an entrepreneur who can identify the latent requirement and come out with a product or a service, naturally that becomes the newness and the unique value proposition of giving a much better pain relief or a much better gain, makes your value proposition more attractive for the customers. So this is a very important aspect we should look at as entrepreneurs when you are creating products or services or trying to improve it without what is being offered by the competition. So then let us look at the types of jobs customers are trying to get. And let us look at what are the types of jobs. There may be functional jobs. Very simple, straightforward. They have a very specific problem. They have two pieces to be joined together. You give a welding rod or an adhesive or a fastener. All that is a functional job. So there is a social job which allows the person or the business to look good, gain power and status. And you find lots of it happening through the social media these days. Or there may be an emotional job, a specific feeling good, feeling secure. And don't feel that all these jobs are standalone. They could be clubbed together. There may be differing percentages or proportions of these four in a particular requirement of the customer. As an entrepreneur who provides the value proposition, you really need to understand the reason why the customer is looking for a product or a service, and analyzing and understanding the types of jobs that customers are trying to get done will enable you to design or position your product appropriately. And you should also look at something called supporting jobs. These are basically the ones who are not part of these three, but they are the ones which enables the person to get the job done, actually operationalizing whatever is being delivered. Let us look at them. So, could be a buyer or a co-creator or a transferor. The customer could be the buyer is the customer is the one who has to really go through the process of identifying the item, tagging the item, placing the order, all those things. That convenience also makes important in making a decision. And many a times the customer would like to be a co-creator. And it may be a very simple thing like putting up a customization, dipping out the toppings and what you want in a pizza to the features required in a mobile phone or a laptop you want to buy. Co-creation everywhere, or thinking about getting involved when a new product is being designed and giving your inputs. All these are the type of supporting jobs which a customer is interested in doing. And don't forget the last one mentioned here, the transferor. After the customer has finished the so-called jobs for which he has obtained the product or service, how do you dispose it of? It is more pertaining to tangible products rather than services, because it is becoming more and more important from a sustainability perspective. So the way in which you can discard or end of life, how do you manage the product also becomes important these days. So if you look at all these aspects from a customer's perspective, please remember all these have to be looked at from a customer's perspective so that the USP, what you are trying to offer, matches it. Matches it from not your perspective, but the customer's perspective. Always remember, life is a matter of perceptions, and you have to be in your customer's shoes whenever you talk about offering a value proposition. And again, is all these jobs important or significant? After all, we are in business. So if you are in business, you really need to look at whether the job is significant. Is it crucial in a customer's work or his life, or a trivial thing for which he may not bother while taking a decision? There are three aspects you can look at. One is, what is the consequence of finishing this job? Does it have significant consequences that the customer naturally will be interested in something which gives a gain or eliminates a pay? And second thing, your opportunity comes when existing solutions do not fully meet the customer requirements, or it doesn't fully eliminate the pain. And second thing is looking at the number of customers. What you are really looking at is are there many customers available, or there are many customers who require this job to be done? Or there is a small number who is really willing to pay a big amount for getting it done. The pain is so real, or the gain required is so important for them, because if they are not able to get that, and that number is small customers, but they are willing to pay a large amount. So all these three aspects have to be considered when you are trying to make your value proposition to meet the job to be done by the customer. This perspective is very, very important because if your product or service is not meeting a requirement arising out of these three significant jobs, then your market share or your size of the market or your top line is going to become insignificant. You may not venture on such a business. So this analysis allows you to take decisions very objectively. Now let us continue. Having identified the customer segment, their requirements, and the value proposition required by them. Now you have identified the value proposition required by them, and now so you are going to really look at how that value proposition is going to be created. How is it going to be delivered? After delivering it, are you able to maintain it, upgrade it? Doing all that calls for different set of activities. Many processes, steps have to be done regularly, intermittently, once a year, but there are many, or only once the first time when you deliver. All that are key activities required if you want to fulfill the requirement of your customer. And these key activities will be different for the different kind of products and services because the value proposition is going to be different and the work to be done by the customer is going to be different. For example, if you are looking at a low-cost disposable product, even your supply chain design will be very different. You look at an efficient, maybe a push-type supply chain, which is low cost. Whereas if you are going to give the other end a highly customized product, you look at a responsive supply chain, what is something to be able to do it fast after getting the requirement. It's not efficient, not cost efficient, but it is faster responsiveness will be there. Why I'm giving these differences? Even the activities which you have to focus on. In both the cases, supply chain is required, no doubt. Supply chain is required, but it is not just the supply chain requirement we are talking about. We are talking about the way in which you have to format, configure, or select the activity required to be carried out so that the value proposition is delivered, created, and delivered in the way appropriate to meet the gain requirement or pain relief of the customer. So after you do the key activities, the next item you have to look at is how can you carry out these key activities? How do you carry out the key activity? For carrying out the key activity, you need resources. You are not the creator God to say, let it happen and it will not happen. So you really have to have resources at your disposal for carrying out these key activities. So those resources you require are identified as the key resources. So the key resources are the ones which will enable you to carry out key activities. But there's a catch here. What is listed as a key resource is normally what is owned or controlled by the business. Your own people, your own machinery plant, your own platform, your own software, your own delivery mechanism, and your own intellectual property, the process of doing it, everything, if it is owned by you or within by you, then it is a key resource. It could be intellectual, financial, physical, human. your ability to provide consumer finance for 100% of the value of the car. If you have the financial deep pockets, then you can provide that. Providing 100% finance to everybody, you need money. So if you have a deep pocket, you have the key resource. But if you really do not have that own resource or the capability to develop that resource or capability in-house, you may have so many people, some people are capable of creating it, fine, then it's a key resource which can be used. But many a times, it does not make sense to be like the Ford Motor Company of the olden days, where Ford T model was completely manufactured in-house. They had rubber plantations from there. They got a rubber latex and made the tires. They had wooden tree plantation from there, got the wood record for it. They had steel mills from where you got the steel, full backward integration. No, that is not the way business operates these ways. So you look at key activities performed by your key resources as well as those which could be performed with the help of some outside partners. So it may be more economical to do that or lesser risk because of the expertise they own. You should remember that. Knowledge and expertise has become more and more important these days. Just to quote, the Standard & Poor top 500. So you have been tracking the top 500 companies for quite long. There's a company called Ocean Tomo. They publish every year various analysis. And they have given a publication where they have compared the top 500 companies in S&P index. And what they have compared is the market capitalization and the value of physical assets. Physical assets, naturally, what you see in your balance sheet as plant and machinery and building and all that physical assets. And of course, there are others, what you generally, it may not be mentioned there as an asset. What is mentioned, physical assets of the company, as a percentage of the market capitalization, they are compared from 1975 to 2021. If you look at 1975, 75% of the physical asset value, or 75% of market cap was equivalent to the physical assets. In terms of number of companies, that means 75% of 500 were the companies who had large physical assets. Add up their physical assets, their value, the top 500 was coming to almost 75% of the market capitalization. Switch to 2021. It has become 15%. Is it because the plant and machinery has become useless? No. It is because the knowledge has become more and more important and their value has increased to such an extent. Market capitalization or expected returns and all those things from businesses depend a lot on the knowledge assets. And if you are able to create the knowledge asset on your own, very good. Otherwise, you have to get into partnership or try to get into partnership so that the key resources you have to own may not be that high. Because many people are doing that. So let us get into the new behaviors. Why is it different? I'm just taking a shift. The new behaviors are one. Our behaviors are, our customers or suppliers, everybody's behavior is shaped by the social media and the net. We are in a connected world. All of us are very comfortable in being in a public, collaborative, and connected life. This may be one reason why owning own assets may not be perceived to be very important. And you find that the personal level perceptions creep into the enterprise as well. And as a result, even enterprises and businesses are more open to be living or working in a connected, public, collaborative way. So what happens because of that? You see something called technology shifting to the cloud. And since most of you nowadays, most of the incubated entities, I was looking at the one is being incubated, are mostly knowledge-based businesses. The key resources owned by the business may be more in terms of critical technology, manpower, and less in terms of common infrastructure like a data center or the hardware or the building or anything like that. All those things are shifting to the cloud. What really happens when it shifts to the cloud? Shifting to the cloud actually means we are allowing let go of the ownership. We need not, earlier we felt comfortable when you own the data center, put a physical lock on it. Even when the physical lock was on the data center, everything was accessible, everything was connected. There was nothing literally actually locked up in the data center. It was all open, all connected, everything. But the perception and the way people look at it has changed a lot. So you are getting into a situation where assets are no longer important or assets are available as a service. All this cloud actually converts all the key resources into key services. That is a major shift. The key resource becoming a service is a major shift in the environment, and the businesses should be very much aware of this one. And this brings out another important aspect known as the digital transformation. The digital transformation actually has come out with three distinct entities: digital tokens, digital twins, and the digital thread. Why I talk about them? Anybody trying to look at a business has to really look at the value creation methodologies from these perspectives as well. The digital tokens enable people to work in a kind of a shared ledger, digital shared ledger kind of working, which enables people to have transparency, no duplicacy of work. It's also called a blockchain. It's definitely a shared ledger or a distributed ledger. It is enabled in technology, but the distributed ledger technology or a blockchain may be the way in which many of these value creation, distribution, all may be controlled very effectively, very transparent manner. Of course, don't think that proof of work in what is being done for Bitcoin will be the standard. Never. It is not replicable. I don't want to get into detail why it is still having some value and all those aspects. I will only talk about the businesses adopting kind of a blockchain, a permissioned blockchain, or where there is a kind of a protocol for arriving at consensus in a different method, not by proof of work, but by either a round robin. Many methods are available, but such things may be naturally acceptable and applicable to business environments. So when you work on it, look at the requirement of your customer, That is why I said requirement of a customer, what is the work to be done by the customer, and technology is not important. How the work gets done is important. If that can be enabled by a particular technology, select it, not otherwise. Don't fall in love with technology. So what really brings you to the most important aspects of business these days, that is key partners. No business today can say that we are all standalone, we have all the capabilities in-house, we are omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. No. Partnerships are becoming the most important aspect of business models. It allows you to optimize your model, reduce costs, minimize resources, and most importantly, reduce risk. Owning assets increases risk. But there is an advantage also. I'll talk about when we are talking about knowledge creating assets or locking in. That is a different aspect. Otherwise, in general, risk is there by acquiring general purpose assets. Specialized assets are different. Acquiring general purpose assets or generalized services which can be obtained in the cloud, then you should never go for owning such kind of assets. Now let's look at what kinds of partnerships are we talking under this key partnerships. There can be strategic alliance, that is non-competitors working together, and competition where strategic partnership between competitors are working together. Strategic alliance between non-competitors will be a very simple thing. There was a person manufacturing washing powder, and next to him there was a person making water tanks, plastic water tanks. So what is the person was doing? The water tanks are shifted, transported to many locations in the country. They go empty normally. This gentleman filled it with the washing powder and started sending it. A strategic alliance between these two companies really reduced the transportation cost of both of them. Why I give you a simple example like that? Yes, it makes a lot of sense. Put the washing powder in it, take the other end, then he empties it, packs it in a small packet, distributes. So he has multiple assembly points at different locations. The transporter, bulk transport between them happens through this water tanks. Water tank, if nothing happens, you can just rinse it and it is clean again. You can use it. Competition you find in today's mobile cellular industry. You would have noticed that the towers are common. The same tower, you got all the service providers antenna sitting. Joint ventures are very often, people work together to develop a new product or a new kind of a service capability. You would have found people, there is a Maersk as a trade lens developed. It is between developing it, after it comes out, how they are going to compete is not evolved. But the products could be, each one may have unique products coming out of it. Then you have the buyer-supplier relationships. It's very common. So the buyer does some developments in anticipation of new products of the supplier develops it, buyer is developing something new, everything works together. So that means they are going to share information. More transparency is required between them. Supply chains details are shared. So you find the key partnership become more and more important for all types of businesses. It's not like that only one type of business is important. It is important for most of the businesses. And your business also, it is very good. Like you are starting off a new venture, you are starting off. If you are able to align with somebody who will be your potential buyer, have an arrangement with him that he will be getting the product or the service at a particular for a particular period at a whatever lower cost price or whatever. Or this is something which is a job to be done for the buyer. He is assured that somebody is solving it for him the next 6 months. So he is also interested in having a tie-up with the supplier. So these buyer-supplier relationships are very, very important for startups. If you do, many a times you do not have these things tied up, later on you find it very difficult to scale up or even operate because they are not linked up and connected. That is where you find this business model canvas with all these entries threaded together becomes a fail-safe mechanism to ensure that you have planned everything and don't miss any critical item. So why do people go around creating partners? You really can ask yourself and understand whether there is a optimization and economy of scale if you tie up with a partner. You don't form a partnership because the other entity is your friends or your classmates' entity. It doesn't make any business sense for either of the partners. There has to be either an optimization and economy of scale coming up because of the partnership. There has to be a reduction of risk and uncertainty. Let me take a minute to explain what is risk and what is uncertainty. Risk is a simple probability distribution. You know that the outcomes, what are the possible outcomes you know. You also are in a position to assign some kind of a probability for their occurrence. So that is a risky situation, but it is under control. You can do something to ensure that it happens within the range, or you make your business machine all capable of working within that range. Risk is manageable. Uncertainty means you have less information. You do not have information about the possible outcomes. What are the possible outcomes? You do not have full information. So many a times creating a partnership reduces the uncertainty by bringing out some possible outcomes. You are able to identify by tying up with this kind of a buyer, you are ensuring that there is at least 40% of your output has some demand. Other 60 you have to see who is going to do. So the uncertainty is not something to be left unattended. Wherever you feel, oh, we don't know, it's unknown, start analyzing it, collecting information so that the uncertainty or the uncertain situation becomes a risky situation. From uncertainty to risk, that is from the unknown to the known. So this kind of possibility has to be looked at. And it is also possible that this uncertainty reduction is only for a particular aspect of somebody's business. Other segments you may be competing, all that is fine. So reduction of risk and uncertainty, if it happens because of the partnership, it has to be welcomed. Then comes, will you get a particular kind of an activity or a resource which may be a constraint otherwise? Not what this is where I talked about assets which are of a general nature, available in the cloud, are no concern. You need not acquire those assets. Another thing of ensuring that somebody else who has that resource, who has the capability, who may even have established a kind of deep learning capability or demonstrated AI capability already established, you may like to tie up with them so that many of your things can be validated Validation actually reduces risk. Validation requires definitely moves uncertainty to risk. So all the three I talked about are not independent. There may be three aspects which may be present in the partnership or which may be brought in by the partnership. So start analyzing what is lacking in your business. And especially uncertainty, we will see, no, never have this one, we'll see when it comes to, you have to get in, look at every situation in detail, analyze it and see whether you are able to understand the risk associated with the outcomes, which means you have to know what are the outcomes. Otherwise, you start looking at how that outcomes can be defined by having this kind of partnerships. Partnership could be about getting a service or a capability, as I explained, not only for an asset, or it may be an ability to distribute your product or support your product. All these things are important. After you sell the product, there are many products that are not consumed. They are having a longer life. They have to be supported. And without support, no pre-sale will happen. Your customers will be unhappy. Tying with somebody who has that ability to distribute or support becomes important. So look at your partnership requirements and select your partners judiciously. Very important aspect. Then, how do you reach your customer? You have a value proposition, but you do not have one customer and you are not the only one person. It's not a one-to-one way of doing things. You really need to have sales, distribution, communication, all kinds of channels to interface with your customer. Because please remember, your customer is not sitting there just waiting for your inputs alone. He has so many other things to do. He has many businesses, activities he himself had to carry out. So there is somebody need to be in touch with you. Hello, this one is there. All those things, that means raising awareness, helping customers to evaluate, and also how to buy, enabling the actual purchase, whether it's available in the local store or available online, all those things. You have to enable, make it available for people to buy. And delivering the value proposition actually is much more than just delivering the product or service. It is enabling the customer to get full value from it. So it may include a product and a service and a continued support, or a configuring, reconfiguring it, all those things. So all these things can be done through a channel or a channel partner. You may say a channel is a partner, but channels are the ones you are using for on the customer interface, whereas the key partners we talked about earlier are the ones you are going to give the key resources so that you can create the value proposition. Understood the difference? Both are that way external aligned businesses. They are business aligned, external to you, aligned with you, one on the upstream, other is on the downstream. That is all. So, of course, people look at again, you have your own channel, in-house sales force, or a website, or your own retail stores, company-owned retail outlet. Yes, if you have a very, very unique product and you are very sure that it is going to be, after all the analysis, you find that it is going to be having a definite clientele or customers in a particular area, then you may go for own direct store, because naturally the margins are higher because you're not sharing the margin with somebody else. You're not sharing the margin with a channel partner. Otherwise, you have to go for partner indirect. See, like one more aspect, you should look at all these things. When you talk, I'll revisit this one again when you go to that pricing and revenue aspects. Whether you can afford to have an own direct or a partner indirect also depends on your cost structures and your price, all those things. So many a times, whatever the 9 boxes you are filling in, you may have to do iterative operation. You have to iteratively rearrange them. Do one, check it out, rearrange. So the whole process of developing the business model canvas may call for multiple iterations for a business. It is not just plug in, it is over. When you analyze an existing business, it is very easy, which I am going to do for an existing, you will find tuck, it comes in. With an existing business known to me. Whereas somebody starting a new business may have to undergo multiple iterations to develop the business model canvas. And one of the iterations will be on how to, what kind of channel is going to be used. The most important thing in any business is customer relationship. So the relationships are very important because that is what enables you to understand the customer requirements, change in customer requirements, as well as you come to understand the customer experience, how he felt about dealing with your company as well as your product. Is there a post-purchase dissatisfaction? Nothing is. All those things without customer relation, you'll be blind, deaf. You will never know what is happening. So it can be different kinds of relationships through different channels you have. All the channels you have, what I talked about, the channels of distribution, all that will allow you to enhance your customer relationship. It can be personal or can be automated. It's just transactional because everybody comes and buys and goes away. If you are running a shop in a railway station or an airport, your relationship with the customer is normally transactional, not going to be long term. Whereas you are a B2B customer supplying an important raw material, or you are a person who is supplying a software which is going to help the customer enhance his optimization of supply chain and things like that. It's a long-term relationship. So whatever is the relationship required there is automated, transactional, or a long term also depends on all these kind of things. So basically, customer relationships allow you to acquire customers, retain customers, and upsell to the customers. That means, how do you acquire new customers? It is through customer relationships. How do you gain business from the existing customers? Retain customer is not just hello, hello. You have to continuously get orders from them. Then they are retaining customers. Or what additional service you can offer to the existing customers. All these things are important. How do you look at it is the box customer relationships. And the customer experience will always be a net result of your customer relationships. So what you really have to look at is that when you have, if you have multiple customer segments, what kind of a relationship is expected by the customer segment. So we are again looking at most of what we discuss from the customer's perspective. Customer relationship is something as required by the customer. And then are you going to immediately jump into that? You may have to do it. What have you established? How costly are they? It can be integrated with the existing business model. So you really have to come out with a way of meeting the customer expectations by fine-tuning your relationship. So I'll take a few things which may be useful in doing this. One is called an automated services. It is not a simple online service, it's an automated service with more sophisticated form of customer self-service processes, which simulates a personal relationship. If you really cannot afford to have a personal relationship established, a direct selling, do the cost and all those things, look at an automated services, which simulates a personal relationship. Or you try, if you have a large number of customers, your segment is large, try to build online communities. Basically, the communities are, users are trying to help each other, gain more knowledge about the applications. They are very useful. And with connected world, communities are very easy to establish, support, nurture. And also it allows customers, the biggest advantage of creating a community is not only in customer relationship, in solving problems, it also brings out latent requirements of the customer. Please remember the custom communities exchanges, somebody has to really do intelligent processing of all the messages established, exchanged, and all the postings made to understand, are there any latent requirements of the customer which can be filtered out, and a product or service can be offered to meet it after doing the other analysis on what kind of a job to be done it is, will it be having major consequences of doing that. You have to do the same analysis and see if there is sufficiently large market, if you anticipate large market in terms of revenue. So these communities have become very, very important. And another thing is switching costs. What will be the cost? How easy will be the customer to move from view? See, it is not that mechanical way of switching costs. Remember, interfaces, mechanical interfaces will not allow him to use another product. That's not that kind of way. I'm talking about switching costs. You are able to anticipate the customer requirements, latent requirements, and able to service them continuously. The customer also realizes that switching from you for a lower cost supplier may impact his performance itself in the long run. That is the kind of switching cost if you can have it. That is the customer relationship you establish with the customer is so beneficial. The relationship is mutually beneficial. Then only switching costs can be used as a lever for retaining the customers. So when you look at your customer, switching cost has been created for the customer through your good service or your value addition or continuous value addition improvements. So the customer feels that you are a partner who really adds, gives them key capabilities for their business. You understand that? You being a person who provides key resources, that is key capabilities for your customer, then the customer has a major switching cost. You have to be looked at from that perspective. Now let us look at the cost structure. Costs and prices have nothing in common. Costs show your efficiency of operation or your scale. Prices is what is willing to be paid by the customer. These two are totally different. And the only thing you have to ensure that you don't constantly have a price lower than your cost. Then you're going to go out of business. That also is not sustainable. So the cost structure depends on the strategy you are pursuing. Are you a cost leader or a differentiator? If you are operating a commodity market where the products are not differentiated or differentiable, the differentiable becomes because of that. If you do an analysis of the what job to be done from the customer's perspective, there is no difference if he takes anyone or is a job which really doesn't have much of a consequence. It can be scheduled today, all those kinds of things if you are talking about. Then your price becomes a major decision maker for the buyer. The low price becomes a value proposition then, because there is no way he can differentiate the products. So if you are trying to do a cost-driven model, all your cost structures will be the leanest, and you will try to do maximum automation, standardization, and try to do extensive outsourcing. If your product is fully standard, everything, the inputs are also going to be standard, and the other processes associated with it are also going to be standard, and there is absolutely no point in you trying to have a costly process running in-house. If you can be outsourced to a more efficient person who can club many and try to do a more economic operation. The tower operator is one, everybody is antenized on that. So cost-driven models. On the other hand, value-driven models look for value creation through differentiation. There is more value created or more value is pursued by the customer in your product or service because it is very, very different or differentiated from the competitor's product. At that time, maintaining the difference or the differentiation is the most important thing, not the cost. So please look at the cost structure of your business in line with the strategy you are pursuing. It cannot be different from, or it cannot be decided independently. It has to be determined and decided based on the structure or on the strategy. Strategy drives the cost structure. Of course, there is an economies of scale, economies of scope. Scale is like you have a capability to produce certain things from a fixed setup. Then having the maximum output will bring down naturally the unit cost. Economies of scope, if you can share or common facilities for manufacturing or marketing or distribution, that means you are having multiple products meant for multiple markets, customer segments, but they can be manufactured using a common facility, or they can be distributed using a common channel, or the requirements of the some of the manufacturing can be done by a common service provider. All those things bring in a economies of scope. And second most important thing is composition of fixed cost and variable cost in your total cost. The unit cost consisting more of variable cost, then your marginal cost will be almost same. Less fixed cost, more variable cost, then your marginal cost going to be higher. More fixed cost and less variable cost, your marginal cost tend to be lower. An operational leverage situation. That means you have dumped more money into the fixed assets earlier, a risky thing. So all these things allow you to look at your cost structure, which is driven by the strategy originally you are decided. You want a differentiator, you want to be a differentiator or a cost leader. And how this composition of fixed assets will fit into that. Now let us look at the most important aspect of your business, revenues. We talk about businesses which are run for generating revenue. So how do you ensure that you get the maximum revenue for the product or service? Most important thing is to determine the willingness to pay for each customer segment. Understand what is the customer willing to pay. If you are able to understand it, maybe by different methods to find out what is the willingness to pay. I'm not, that itself is a revenue management, a separate topic altogether, so I'm not going into that. But if you can understand the willingness to pay, of your customer segment. It will ensure that you don't leave money on the table. What I mean to say, leaving money on the table is exactly the difference between what you charge and the willingness to pay. The customer was willing to pay more, that means you are leaving money on the table. So startups especially be very careful about pricing. You structure the price in such a way that you may give a POC at free or only at variable cost. Very clearly telling is only a POC at variable cost, regular pricing will be different. So the willingness to pay, you have to determine it in various ways, understand it. Second, what is the type of revenue streams you can get from your product or service? It is going to be intermittent, continuous, because all these things are going to affect your cash flow. And many of the new businesses die in what is known as the valley of death. Valley of death is the initial stage when, after the initial growth, they try to scale up, run short of cash, and die. So the value of death is an area to be avoided. To avoid that, most important is to look at your revenue streams when you design the business model itself. So how you get the revenue, the streams can be various. You can have a standard asset transfer model. That is, you go to a shop, buy an item, pay the cost. That is the asset transfer model. You may have usage fee. Most of the cloud services will be, what do you use? You pay for it. There can be a subscription model. You underwrite for so much of a service for you, so much of bandwidth for you for the month. You pay the subscription in advance. Lending, leasing, renting, you're taking it for a particular period and paying for it. Licensing actually allows you to use an asset, normally an intellectual property asset, for a duration of time. So that is another thing that may be allowing you to generate revenue in a different way. The guy who takes the license. So the guy who takes the license, how do you do the licensing fee? Because an intellectual property given to one person can be given to another person, multiple persons. So all those things, how do you do the licensing? How do you fix the price? All that is very, very important. Another way of getting the intermediation. Intermediation is somebody who runs a brokerage or a platform where you try to get a fee based on the price realized. Auction portals, all those things generally have a kind of an intermediation fee, a fixed fee for conducting the auction, and sometimes a fee for the hire. All those different kinds of models are possible. And the last but not least is advertising. Who is advertising? Where is the advertisement? All those things have become highly transformed these days because you have almost everybody having some revenue stream of advertising. Because whenever you have a customer interface or interaction, there's an opportunity to advertise some product or service based on the demonstrated pattern of visits or the demonstrated path of purchase, the demonstrated way the customer is interacting, all that will allow you to profile the customer and make him proper offers. So all these things are almost like advertising revenue for many of the product and service providers. Now that we know about the 9 boxes, how do you develop the business model canvas? You start with making entries. I already said one for each of the 9 blocks. You can start from any place, any box you start. But you make another entry in the other box which is related to this or which enables this or which is an outcome of this. Then you make another entry in another box, again related, and finally you cover all the 9 boxes and have a common thread. The common thread actually enables you to create, deliver, capture value, and it continues. You can read through it, and it is for a particular customer segment. You make for another customer segment, again, a different list set of entries. So when you are doing this, olden days when you are doing on the board, you could use one at a time, wipe it out. We are doing on the computer still easy, use different colors. One color for one customer segment, take it through. And if the facility is common for, use a different, have a nomenclature. Look at it. But ensure that whichever block you start, you go with the next, not like at random, one end here, one end. They have to be connected. There has to be a connection between the entries as you make. You cannot make random entries and then expect to connect them together. No. Second thing is check for completeness and coherence. What do you talk about when you talk about a customer segment? Can the customer relationship, what kind of a customer relationship be expected by that customer segment? Which channel will enable you to offer that kind of a customer relationship and also deliver your product? Channels also deliver products. So all those things. And what is the value proposition required for fulfilling that customer segment's requirement? So coming back again, what are the key activities required to be conducted, key resources required for that, and key partners required for, and what is the resultant cost, and this customer segment, what revenues will you get? And after this is made, you start putting numbers to it. First you have the threaded thing going through, then you start putting numbers to it, have a spreadsheet, start checking out whether it makes business sense. Having a nice connection is not enough. You have to have a spreadsheet which could capture the numbers as well. So have the BMC, have a spreadsheet to capture the numbers. Both together, when you do it, you have a story. It is a canvas, it is a picture, it is a story. You really can talk about the complete end-to-end processes involved in your business. When you are, if you are using on a computer screen, smartboard, use a animate the label one at a time. If you are on a physical thing, take them out, put one at a time, explain how it goes, so that you can have a sounding board, somebody else listening to you, evaluating it. Yes, it can be done that way. So what I will do now, I will stop my presentation and then I'll come back. I'll stop the screen share. Any queries? Because the next thing what I'm planning to do, if time permits, is to actually look at a business model canvas for some businesses. At this stage, I would like to have some feedback, or was it just going through the above your heads, or was it making sense?
So dear students, if you have any question, please interact with the sir.
If there are no queries, then I will proceed. Shall I proceed with explaining the business model for a particular business? Because the original time was till 4:30, but if time permits, we may take another 10 minutes more. I can proceed with showing you how a business canvas can be used to depict an existing business the same way you could do for a new business also.
Sir, there is a question in the chat box.
I saw that a bootstrapping a finding. Now let me open the chat box. Vaishak, what do you mean by bootstrapping? Bootstrapping a startup means you are trying to do your own resources, which means whatever little resource you have, you are trying to work on it. Would that be sufficient? First thing what you have to see is, as I told you, first you look out, make the business model canvas, then you make the
Sir,
Take
he
the Excel
has
sheet.
typed using my own income to fund the company.
yeah, your own income to fund the company. I'm reading that. If you feel that after you made the business model canvas, you made the spreadsheet and made the money requirements for the company, your business. If that requirement, the cash flow is met with your own income, very good, you can do that. But if you find that the money, your own income is not sufficient to meet the cash flow requirements of the business as determined from the spreadsheet you have made from the BMC. BMC gives the relationship. You can convert that into numbers in a spreadsheet. If that is sufficient, go for bootstrapping. If it's not met, you have to find somebody to fund you. This exactly is the advantage of using a BMC and then converting that into a spreadsheet. I hope I have answered your question. Vaishak was asking this question and I hope it is answered. Yeah. So that is it. Any other query? Let me add one more thing, Vaishak. Business
Hello,
model
sir.
can, yeah. Naufal, tell me.
Yes, sir. As a BTech student, when we're trying to start our company, so what are the funding options or like how we should proceed that?
The funding options, I said, first you require what is the funding required. Naufal, the first thing before you go for funding to determine how much, what fund you require. How do
Sir,
we arrive at the fund requirements?
if you are focusing on a semiconductor, like a converter or something. Like,
so how you made a business model canvas for your business, end to end. Create one. After you are completely sure about the business model you are using, start putting the requirements into a spreadsheet. Many a times what happens, you ask for funding which is not sufficient to see you through the full, the third or fourth stage of your enterprise. You have little money sufficient for doing a POC or initial establishing the business model, that only. You are not have money for scaling up. That is the reason why I said, Naufal, you better make a complete BMC and put down all the money requirements into a spreadsheet and put it month-wise, ideally week-wise, and see what is the cash flow required. You cannot say that in a year I am going to make 10,000 rupee profit or 10 crores profit. You have to see week-wise how the cash flow is going to happen. And if the cash flow is not sufficient, please remember, it's not a very pleasant thing, value of death. That is actually caused by drying up of cash flow.
thank you, sir.
Participants, if you have any other questions, please go ahead. Otherwise, we'll come to the end.
I don't find any more in the chat.
Yeah, chat, I think nothing, sir. Nothing.
Now what? So,
So,
shall I
yes, sir. With this, we will come to the end, sir. Yeah. So,
Kumaravel, what shall I do? Shall I proceed or?
yeah, we will conclude, sir. We will conclude. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't, and do I have to show the next one or I will conclude?
Yeah, we can conclude, sir. We can conclude.
Okay, then let's look at this way. I have shared with you how the techniques of how to create a business model canvas. But business model canvas is not the end in itself. It has to be converted into a cash flow statement, periodic cash flow statement. Look at what is the funding required, especially for startups, and always do a sensitivity analysis. That means you take a plus minus 10% change in lead time, reduction in revenue, and see how exactly your cash flow is going to work. Then redo it. I think that will help you really make a, what do you call a business plan which is robust and which can withstand whatever vagaries you anticipate. So that is it, Kumaravel, from my side. And thank you all for giving me a patient hearing.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable time. So I hope that all of you find it as a very useful session, especially for the business model canvas is concerned. Thank you, sir, for your support to deliver a valuable idea to our student community. Some of the faculty members also participated here. Thank you, sir. I hope in future we will be in contact with you for further help towards the.
Yeah, you need any help, please feel free to contact me.
Yes, sir.
So my contacts are available with Madam. She can give you that. And anytime if anybody wants additional help, please feel free to contact.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable.
Thank you.
So thank you to all the participants who came voluntarily and benefited out of this lecture. So thank you all of you. Hope that we will meet
So
soon.
I am leaving. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.